Preparing now.
All right.
Okay, we're live. Happy Sunday. Here we are. I'm Mark Cool, and this is my son Jasper Cool. We do a podcast on Sundays called Cool Wholesaling or Cool Wholesaling and Land Deals, or it's had a few other names too, Wholesaling the Cool Way. But basically, it's real talk about real estate on Sundays. We just break down some deals we've done. We talk about our business, tools and things we're using, challenges, victories, KPIs, all that stuff. So if you're looking for just real talk, day to day, running a real estate investing business, that's what this is about. And we're hoping some of y'all are joining us live, and we'll definitely monitor the chat and respond to anybody's questions and comments there. But as far as the week in business, Jasper, I figured we'd start off with you. And normally we do deal breakdowns and whatever's going on with the week, KPIs or anything you want to check in about. So what do you got? You want to lead off with a deal or talk about KPIs and victories and challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. So we didn't close a deal this week. We were hoping to close two, but I was sharing with you offline that we're having a lot of difficulty with the IRS on those two deals. It's two properties with the same seller, and so we can't close either one of those until we get this IRS payoff. And yeah, it's just been very difficult work with them. So I don't need to go into all that. But if anyone knows of a
Well, it is.
faster way
Yeah,
to work with the IRS, then let me know. What's that?
it's kind of interesting, and we're talking offline. It's coincidental that we have a guy with an IRS lien too, so I'm curious about it myself.
Yeah.
But maybe we can save it for the end and throw it back on the end, IRS stuff if anybody's interested.
Yeah, and we just recently had another one that was totally killed due to IRS lien. And so this one we were grateful because it wasn't that way. Like the lien was low enough to where we could still, close a deal. The seller makes a little bit of money and we make a little bit of
Yeah.
money. But this other one, we had a property under contract for 90,000 and we were super excited. It was like, I think it was like a 20,000 profit deal. So it was like a good deal for us. And then we run the title search and there's an IRS lien upwards of $200,000 on this property. And
Wow.
so there's just, there's no chance. Like, there's
Yeah.
no chance. There's no chance they're going to accept less than half of what the lien is. And so we did do some research, and apparently you can do like an appraisal, and then you can show the IRS, like, hey, look, this property is not in good condition. It's only worth this much. Will you accept this much? And so we tried that route, but it was too much of a delta there. Like the lien is just way too much compared to what the property was worth. So that one didn't work out. But then we had this other one where the seller is, again, he's really not making much money at all. And we're really just trying to get it closed because, as we were discussing before, this is compounding daily. So the longer that they delay, he might not make any money. And then we have to come out of pocket. And like, it's just getting worse and worse and worse the longer it goes. And so we're really trying to expedite that process. But, anyways, that's just one of the things we went through this week. So, besides that, our week was pretty good. We got three properties under contract this week, which is great. Two of those came from referrals, which is a win for us. We've been getting a few more leads from referrals lately, so that's been good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Um, yeah. And so two of those were referrals. The other one was from SMS. And just looking at our month so far, we've had three deals under contract from referrals, one from PPC, and the rest SMS. So we discussed this, I think, on our last episode, but SMS is very alive and well. So anyone who's not doing it, I would definitely encourage you to try it out for sure. It's still working very
Yeah.
well for us.
One of the best ROI lead channels you can have, and low bar to entry for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, that's been another win this week is just getting our third account up and running. We're starting to get consistent leads from that every day, which is awesome. So probably going to increase the limit or whatever on that one so we can send out a few more texts this coming week with that new account. And it's also nice, as when you sign up for a new account, you get to basically use more of your data when you first sign up because it's not already in the system. So that's nice for us is that we can kind of hit some of these lists a little bit harder because our older accounts, we pretty much have all the data in certain counties that we work in already in the account. So we can't really get as much juice out of some of these lists. So with the new account, it's opposite. So that's been nice. And then we sold three properties this week as well. So that was good. We
That's great.
sold, yeah, we sold one where we needed to get a price reduction and we were able to sell that afterwards. We sold another one very soon after we got under contract. I think we got this one on Monday and sold on Tuesday. So that was great. And then our third deal actually was a JV deal. So we got a JV deal brought to us and got that sold in one day too. So that was awesome.
Wow, that's
So
great.
yeah.
Great turnaround.
Yeah, so that's great. And that buyer is super ready to close. So they're trying to close on the 7th of July, and we just sold it this week. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
And as
If
we
only
were
you could find a
discussing,
lawyer who closed that fast, right?
exactly, as we were discussing beforehand, we are moving away from our current closing attorney. And with this deal, we're working on a new closing attorney, and they were super responsive and ready to close on the 7th. So I'm excited to see how that goes. And we'll maybe be sending them a lot more. So yeah, but that's pretty much it this week in business. We didn't like close anything, like I said. We did get another 5-star review, so that's awesome. And then I guess I could technically share this, but we closed on one double closing deal too, which was fun. And one thing I'll share too that I could share with you offline, but we are talking about closing attorneys, and it's been interesting since I've tried, doing this double closing business.
Hmm.
It's not just us, basically, is what I wanted to share with you. Dealing with these closing attorneys on these double close business, like I'm just a third party, I'm just lending the funds, I'm not really involved, but I'm copied on these emails, and these attorneys are just really, really, really slow. Most attorneys are just extremely slow. So thankfully, it's not just us, but you still want to sift through them and find the fast ones so that we can be more efficient in our business. But that at least gave me some hope. I was like, wow, if I was dealing with these people, my current attorney that I'm leaving would be like night and day. You know what I mean? And like some of these people are just like so slow, like just taking hours to get responses and like days to get a HUD statement, like, just like super slow. Anyways, but that was just an aside.
Well, it is nice to have that perspective because, yeah, you and I have been frustrated with attorneys on and off over the years, but nothing that bad. Waiting days
Yeah.
for not is not usually a thing.
Yeah. And so I was just like, wow. So I kind of feel bad for, some of these wholesalers, and I'm going to refer them to some people that we like, but I was like, wow, that's crazy. But yeah, so that was pretty much the weekend business. I'll share a story because I didn't close anything this week, but we had one where we did make some progress on finally. And so we had this property under contract since February, and we got it under contract. Then we went and saw the house, and it was really bad. One of the worst ones we've seen this year, where all the wiring got stolen out. So all the
Oh
wiring was
wow,
stolen.
that's in a bad neighborhood.
Yeah, the wiring got stolen, the HVAC got stolen, like pretty much
Yeah.
anything of substance in the house was not there. So it's pretty much just a shell. Like you need to rewire it, replumb it, new HVAC, like
Oh
everything. And so, anyways, long story short, we obviously needed to get a price reduction. The seller agreed. And after she agreed to the price reduction, we sold it like super, super fast after that. And we were like, awesome, we're gonna get this thing closed. And here we are in almost July, and it's still not closed. And so the first thing that was an issue was the lender satisfaction. And so we've dealt with that obviously many times before. And if you can't find the lender, you can do what's called an attorney satisfaction. So for anyone listening, if you've never tried it, basically you can have your closing attorney send a letter to the lender to their last address, that's known. And if they don't respond within 30 days, then the attorney can file an attorney satisfaction, basically saying we can't find this lender and we're just assuming that, the loan has been satisfied. So that was the first hurdle, right? Is we were hoping to close in
yeah.
like 2 weeks. But then we ran into that. So we're like, okay. And so then we had to wait 30 days, a little bit more than 30 days. It has to be like, I think it might be 30 business days. And so we waited about a month and a half. And then we're like, okay, awesome. We got this satisfaction. Now can we close? And then literally, this was kind of frustrating on the attorney side as well. But literally, the lender and the buyer and everything, I think they actually wired in funds. Maybe they were about to, or I think they actually wired in funds. But the attorney gave us like the clear to close. We had the HUDs, we had everything. And I'm pretty sure both parties wired in the funds. And then they're like, oh, we just did a title review before closing, and there's an ex-spouse that needs to sign. And we're like, are you
Oh my God.
serious? Are you serious? Like that made me really frustrated because like makes us look so stupid in the face of the buyer where they
Yeah.
were literally expecting to close today and now all of a sudden. And so anyways, that was back in I think April or May, and here we are still. And so, that was very frustrating because for obvious reasons, it kind of makes us look stupid. And the buyer, thankfully, we worked with them before and they weren't too upset, but they were, a little bit upset because they were trying to start work on that property that day. And we all thought we were going to close that day. And so, anyways, so then this ex-spouse, we're going down the rabbit hole with this dude, and the attorney's not really helping us, but we're trying to find this guy and we just can't find him. And he's basically an estranged spouse of the seller. So they basically never got divorced, unfortunately, or else, she could have sold it, but she hasn't seen him in like 20 years, is what she told us. And so they got married in New York. And so we were trying to find this guy in New York, like doing all the skip tracing and stuff. And I thought I found him, and then I didn't. And then I thought he was deceased because I found an obituary in North Carolina, and I was like, maybe this guy's deceased. Like that would make it, easier. Then we could just close.
Yeah.
And then that was not correct. And because she sent us the marriage license, which kudos to her for still having that, but she sent us the marriage license and it didn't line up with the birthday and everything. And so I was like, oh man, it's a different guy. And so he wasn't the deceased guy. And so, anyways, we're going down this rabbit hole. Finally, we find out that he has an upcoming court hearing in Sampson County. And so he has an upcoming court hearing, and so he's been arrested twice just this year. And this is like a 70-year-old man. He's been arrested twice.
7-year-old man.
I think he's 73. Yeah, 73.
Wow, arrested
And,
twice. Yeah.
yes, and so it gets worse. And so thankfully, that was good news because we're like, okay, we finally know this guy exists and he's in North Carolina. So double good news, that we found him and he's in North Carolina. So that's awesome. But then I go on the Harnett County. It's actually Harnett County, not he lives in Sampson County, but he was arrested in the Harnett County. So, anyways, then I go on Harnett County courthouse, and they have like a cool online system. So kudos to them for that. But I go on there and I search up his name. This guy has 5 to 10 pages of a rap sheet, I think is what it's called. But he has so many charges against him. He has like I won't even name the charges, but he has so many charges against him. I was like, no wonder you got.
It's like, well, I already got this many. I might as well just keep going. My record's never going to get better.
Exactly. But I was like, no wonder these guys like separated. She probably was having to deal with this for years. And so his most recent charges are literally like assault with a deadly weapon and assault against a woman. And I was like, oh my gosh.
At 70 years old.
Yeah, 73 years old, and he's like 5'7", because it gives their information. He's like 5'7", 140 pounds, 73 years old. So he's like a little old man, like doing crazy stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so anyways, so then we find out all this information, and the 2 recent arrests from this year, he's going on August 13th. And I was like, man, we don't want to wait till August 13th, to close this deal because we've been waiting so long. And so we're like, okay. So thankfully, this one had an address listed in Clinton, North Carolina, in Sampson County. And so we had our notary go over there, and he brought a free trader agreement with him. And this was cool. This was something I learned. So I'll share that with you and everyone else. I'd never heard of a free trader agreement before.
I haven't either, no.
So I think it might be a newer thing. I don't know. I haven't heard of it before, but basically when there's this ex-spouse, you have a few different options, right? Like you could have them sign a quitclaim deed to her. You could have them actually get divorced, right? And then he relinquishes rights. And I think there's one other one with like a separation thing where he like relinquishes any rights to the marital assets or something. Anyways, usually we just do the quitclaim deed. But what they said, looking out for the seller, is they were like, well, if we do this free trader agreement, it's actually like one step above that, where if she ever wants to sell a property in the future, she can do so based on this free trader agreement without ever doing the divorce. And so basically this would withstand for the rest of her life, even if she bought and sold another property, because, since they're not divorced, he still has rights to all of her property. So if they did this free trader agreement, it's basically like a POA for her to basically sell all of her assets without having to, counsel him or talk to him at all.
And it just requires a signature from him and the notary, just like a quitclaim.
Exactly.
And instead of being one property, it's everything.
Yeah, it applies to everything from now and in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was cool. I learned something new with that. And so we're like, awesome. So our attorney prepped that. We sent our notary over there with the free trader agreement. And of course, he refused to sign. And so he goes over there to the free trader agreement. Thankfully, he's there, though. So that was good news. We found exactly where he lives. And so he goes over there with the free trader agreement. And I'm on the phone with my notary. And this guy's just cursing in the background. He's like, I'm not signing, just swearing left and right. And I asked my notary, I was like, do you have me on speaker? And he's like, no. That's how loud he was screaming. Like, imagine someone holding the phone up to their ear, and I'm hearing this guy screaming. Like, that's how loud.
You told the notary that he had a rap sheet, right? That was...
Yeah. He knew about what he was walking into, and he was cool that, thankfully this guy is awesome. He helps us with a lot of stuff. So anyway, so he refused to sign that, and he was like, I'm not signing. Like, I deserve half of that and all this stuff. And it was like, okay. And so anyways, long story short, after that, we were like, well, she's not going to agree to half of it. She hasn't seen this guy for years, and he hasn't done anything to help her or anything. And so then the next step is divorce. And so we're still not closed, obviously, but this week we started the divorce process. And thankfully they said, since they don't have kids and they've been separated for over a year, they don't need his signature for the divorce to be final. All they need to do is serve him with the papers, and then that's considered as notice, and they can file for the divorce. So that was a godsend for us, because I was thinking like, well, if we file for divorce, he's not going to agree to sign on that because he knows what we're doing, but he doesn't have to. So that was great news. And to make matters worse, he doesn't even have a valid ID. His ID is expired, so he couldn't even notarize anyways. But yeah, so that's the plan that we're going with. Unfortunately, the attorney said that's going to take like another 2 months. But after that, she'll be able to sell that property and any other properties and, make 100% of the proceeds. So that was a long story.
How's the buyer on that?
He is still thankfully holding on. I mean, now that we got that price reduction, like we could sell it to a different buyer as well. But this guy is still being patient with us. We've been updating him, of course, what's going on. But yeah, it looks like we'll probably close in whatever September almost, probably after this is done. But yeah, so we paid for the divorce, which unfortunately was 1,200 bucks. But the seller agreed to reimburse us for half once we do close. So it'll only be 600 bucks for us. So it's not too bad. But yeah. So that's my story for the week. Hopefully in two
That's
months
wild. Yeah,
I'll be able
that's
to
wild
close
and
it.
crazy.
Yeah.
We don't often come into contact with people with that much of a criminal background, or at least that we're aware of. I mean, we might,
Yeah.
but I've never run into somebody like that where you're like, oh my God, this guy's a convicted criminal.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the funniest part, like I should send you one of the mugshots or something. The funniest part is he's like 5'7", 73 years old. He's just like a little old man and he's like doing all this stuff. It's just I was shocked. I was really shocked by it.
Once a
But
thug, always a thug, I guess.
I guess so. I was like, how does this guy have so much energy to still be committing crimes? Like, what is going on?
Oh my God, that's
Yeah.
hilarious.
But yeah, that's it. And so that's pretty much it. We had a slow June to end the quarter, but we still did better than we did in the first quarter. So that's
Well,
exciting.
wait a minute, June 30th is Monday, so
Yeah, well, we're not closing anything Monday. So
well,
yeah.
we're hoping to close one Monday.
Yeah. It's not over yet, but I'll turn it over to you, hear about your week.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks for checking in about that. There's a lot of stuff in there, and a lot of
Yeah,
a lot of good lessons too. The free trader agreement and the IRS stuff is tough, but and even learning about the divorce, that you can do a divorce without having the second party sign anything. It's good to know. If we ever run into that, but I think the takeaway, as always, is persistence, right?
hmm,
Persistence and problem solving is kind of what this job is. Get a
absolutely.
few slam
Yeah.
dunks here and there, but you get a lot of twists and turns and problems to solve and obstacles
Yeah.
to overcome. Yeah.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, I was going to start off with a deal breakdown, I guess, and I've got a few other things I can check in about, but it was kind of fun because we closed a deal this week and it was from a lead that you gave us, Jasper. So we have a lead source in our Podio that's Jasper Leads. We just call it Jasper Leads because he sends us every once in a while list of land listings, because Jasper doesn't, you don't really do the land that much unless
Yeah.
it's like a cherry pick, primo deal. But our we've been a little bit slow in acquisitions. I guess I can preface this by saying we've had an 8-week drought before closing this deal this week. So that means that it cuts down on our marketing budget as far as doing anything like direct mail or other marketing sources. So it's been a little bit slow. And so one of the things our lead manager was doing was just calling through the most recent list of leads you gave us, Jasper, just like, well, I'll see if I can get
Nice.
anybody on the phone.
Yeah.
So we got one of the leads on the phone and they were ready to sell. And it's a vacant lot in Fayetteville. And I've got this stuff pulled up, so I'm going to read from my Podio a little bit. But they were originally asking 11,000 for this lot. The tax assessment was 8,000, and we had our estimated retail at about 15, what we thought we could get for it.
Hmm.
So we went back in and we offered them, obviously lower than, we offered them 6,000, and we always do weird numbers. So we offered them 61.22, and we set our max at 7 because we figured we'd get 15 for it, and we usually like our minimum deal for land is to be 8. So then we went back and forth with her, and we got her under contract for 65 when she was originally
Nice.
asking 11. So that's good
That's
work
great.
from
That's like
them.
half.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
acquisitions team did great. It's an out of state seller. This woman is in New Jersey, and so she has this North Carolina property that she hasn't. I think she inherited it. She's not been paying attention to it. So we signed a contract with her for 6,500 for a lot that we thought we could get 15 for. And then we did our review of the property. We do what we call a post contract review, and we found a special assessment from the city, a lien, for $6,395.
Oh no. Oh, no.
So, so basically, everything that we committed to pay her was what the lien was, and
Oh
so
man.
credit my acquisitions team. They got back on the phone with her. Wilson, my sales closer guy, he got back on the phone with her and he got her to agree to a net of $500 to her, and we'd cover the lien. So that was a
That's
big
great.
victory. Yeah, so that puts us in at just under 7 cost, and then the timeline on this is pretty tight too. I think this list that you sent us was from May 22nd, and
Hmm.
then we put this under contract on June 5th,
Nice.
and we sold it on June 12th. So like sold it in about a week. Yeah, and we sold it to one of our VIP buyers, and we weren't getting. I mean, I can talk more about our disposition and not getting offers, but we got 2 offers. One was for 10,000, one was for 12,000, and then Derek got the 12,000 offer up to 12.5, and we took that. So we're at 6,400 in liens plus 500. So we're just call it 700 with a 12.5 purchase price
Hmm.
from a buyer, and then from there it was pretty smooth sailing. So we just got the lawyer set up, and we closed it on June 25th, just this week. So
Nice.
pretty straightforward. And Jasper and I have a little side deal. When he sends us leads, we give him, it's kind of like a JV with a percentage split. So Jasper's got money coming his way, which is always fun to
Yeah. Thank you.
to do some business together and send you some money from leads that you probably wouldn't be doing anything with anyway. So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's, it wasn't nearly as crazy as your deal, just the hiccup of the special assessment. And those happen in urban lots when, like in the case of this seller, the seller is out of state, so she's not paying attention to the lot, and the city's sending notices like, you need to mow this or clear this before we send somebody out there to do it ourselves. And she didn't see the notices, or she ignored them or something, and so then they mow it or clear it or whatever they think needs to be done, and then they assess a charge for it. And sounds like with $6,400, they probably did it. I think they usually assess like 2 or 3 grand every time they do it. They assess a lot of money. It's not.
That's
It's not a.
crazy.
It's not a reasonable amount. It's never a reasonable amount from what I've seen.
Yeah.
They do it and they just wail on you. They don't charge you like $400. They charge you like $2,000 or $3,000.
Wow.
That's what maybe it's different in different cities and states, but this is Fayetteville, and I don't know how many times they did it, but it's a lot of money. So anyway, that gets paid off at closing, and the seller got $500 at closing. She was happy to get the special assessments paid off, to have the property off her register, out of her world, because she's in New Jersey trying to manage, or not really managing it very well. And then she also said after we closed that she had some more properties in Florida that she was interested in selling to us. And
Nice.
coincidentally, we just opened up the Florida market this week. So
Oh, yeah.
we're marketing actively in Florida starting this week, because of other stuff we've talked about on this pod with the new legislation that's on the horizon in North Carolina. We're looking at other markets, and Florida started this week. So she's got a couple lots over there, and she gave us a 5-star review on our Google reviews. So it's turned out to be a pretty decent deal. Not a big profit deal, but a little bit of money coming in, a closed deal, happy seller, and some referrals. So
That's
I
great.
don't know if I owe you a percentage of those referrals too. Maybe I do now if we close them, since it
No,
came
that's
from.
awesome.
Um, but yeah, so that's the deal. And then I'll just touch on some other stuff from the week in business. I had a big milestone this week where Jasper and I were talking about it offline, but I let a team member go that had been with us for a couple of years, and that's never easy, but it also was the right thing to do. It just wasn't quite a fit in terms of their skill set and ability. Actually, this team member was not able to make phone calls from their home setup, and that was a big hindrance to their productivity. And then there were some other issues that I don't need to go into, but it just was time to part ways. And it's not easy when you've been with somebody for a couple of years, and but it was necessary for the growth of the company. And I think in my own leadership, the what I learned from it is that I have a duty to the company and to myself to do the right thing by the company, more than I have, to be loyal to one individual within the company, because everybody else who's working hard and going the extra mile, needs to have their efforts honored. And if somebody else is maybe not doing as much, then that's not honoring their work. And then there's goals for the business, and if the goals aren't being met and there's a bottleneck, then something needs to change.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, sometimes it's a person who's on the bus, maybe in the wrong seat on the bus, or maybe on the wrong bus. uh, so anyway, but we did bring on somebody new to start helping us with some disposition buyer outreach, which I'm excited about. And I think this person may be able to be a Jacqueline of all trades, do a variety of tasks, some admin, some acquisition, some dispo. And so I'm looking forward to working with her over the next couple of weeks and seeing what she can do. And what else do I have? Well, I mentioned the Florida market. We opened up the Florida market, and we got 55 leads in Florida this week. So
Wow.
kind of like what you're talking about, and that's all SMS.
Yeah.
Kind of like what you're talking about with opening your new SMS account. We're in a brand new market, so we've got nothing slowing us down. And we just pull this and reach out, and boom, boom, boom. We're just getting. So yeah, 55 leads, I think, in Florida, combination of land and houses, and that's pretty exciting to dig into that and see what we can do there. And I double and triple checked Florida's wholesaling laws, and they're basically where we are with North Carolina now. You just have to disclose to the end buyer you're not representing the seller. You just have an equitable interest or an assignable contract, or however you want to say it. But yeah, and as far as I can tell, and it's Florida is a title company state too, not an attorney state. So we'll be working with title companies to close deals there.
That's nice.
And we're doing that in Ohio right now with one. We have a title company we're working with to close a deal there. So that'll be our first title company closing once that finally closes. So yeah, that's exciting. And ending that drought is exciting. We had another deal that was supposed to close on Friday, and it seemed like the lawyer dropped the ball with preparing the HUD. I don't know. I think they're just over busy, but it should have closed Friday. But knock on wood, all we need is a HUD and some buyer funds wired on Monday, and we will close it. The seller documents are in.
That's
so
great.
that will end our drought with 2 deals within a week span, and then we've got some more slated to close in July. So we should be back on track and rolling from there.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about Scale Army, so I figured I'd update that. I got a couple more candidates from Scale Army this week, and they're pretty good. Both are good candidates. One I just wouldn't hire based on the way they speak, because I'm a stickler for that. I want somebody to be really clearly understandable if I'm going to have them talking to people, especially in the South, where you need to have a pretty clean accent. For Southern people's ears are a little bit different. You can't. You need to speak clearly. But one of the candidates was good, and so I think we'll probably set up an interview with her. And she does have real estate, wholesaling experience. So anyway, 1 for 2 with what they submitted to me this week. And I guess the other wrinkle to that is they sent me a message earlier in the week, and they said, the price point that you're willing to pay is a little bit of a hindrance for us to get what you need to get in terms of the accent and the experience. And so I upped my price point a little bit with them, my max that I would pay. And I don't know what they are adding on to the weekly or monthly pay, because it's just, the price point I entered with them was the same price point I entered at with somewhere.com, and they didn't have any problem sending me candidates. So I don't know, I'm imagining they're padding it pretty well for that to be the case, that they needed more money to work with to be able to hire the same quality of people or slightly better quality people. Oh, another big thing that happened this week was my business website crashed, went down.
Oh no.
Yeah.
What happened there?
Everything was good on Wednesday. I think on Thursday, everything was good. And I think I shared, and we don't need to go too deep in the weeds on this because this isn't really real estate talk. It's business challenges, but we were just building a new website. We're just revamping our website, and I was pretty happy with the way it was coming out. And I was winding down with a developer, and I was going to build the available properties page myself because he was having a hard time with doing it within my parameters. So I was like, I'll just do it. And then I was like, well, God, if I could get him to do it, it would save me a bunch of time, and I'd pay him like $40 probably to do it, because I'm paying him like $11 an hour. So he worked on it again, and then my site crashed. So he did something with Elementor. I think Elementor is not a good site building thing. Anyway, I got all these reports from my host, and I got reports from other places, and I used ChatGPT, and I figured out what was going on. And it was like bots grabbing onto CSS files in Elementor pages and all this stuff. And I kind of sorted through it, and ChatGPT really helped me with this. I just said, these are my issues. Help me walk through this. I blocked some bots. I downloaded a couple plugins. I went on the back end of my website on the host side and changed some files and did some things. And I got everything back up online myself using ChatGPT. So anyway, grateful for ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And then I completed the contract with my web developer and told him that he probably broke my site with the last thing he did. And that was that. I didn't do it in nasty. I was just like, we're done. I know. So yeah, so that was another challenge. And other deals that I have going on, I think I shared this with you, Jasper. This the one where I got the buyer to agree to do a special warranty deed, and because we couldn't locate all these heirs and they're probably deceased, but we haven't been able to find them or 100% prove that. So he's like, I'm good with it. And I talked to this guy in Spanish, which made me happy because I had the full conversation with him. And he's ready to go. But now the lawyer is saying stuff like, well, it wouldn't really be a closing. It's just going to be a quick claim deed, which I can prepare for you, but it'd be $300. And I was like, so you're not going to handle the money? Is that what you're saying? You're not going to do a HUD statement? Even if he's saying it's not even a special warranty, it's just a quick claim. So I'm like, okay, but would you process it? Anyway? So I'm trying to figure that one out. But it might be a case where we were talking offline about doing your own deeds. It might be a case where I just drop a quick claim deed and do the closing with the buyer myself. Have them write my company a cashier's check, and it's not a big one. It's for a vacant lot, so 15 or 20K, total. So that's a challenge that I'm navigating. And then we got a house that we contracted way too high, and I talked with the seller on. Duncan went down and did photos for us, and did a walkthrough. He did like a full inspection. He did a full checklist, and but it was 3 weeks after we went under contract. So then the seller's bugging my acquisitions guy and is like, "What's going on? When are we closing? What's happening? What happened with the inspection?" And he didn't really know what to say because he knows we're overpriced. And I had talked about it with him. And I said, well, maybe we could talk him into a novation or an owner finance thing or something, but we're definitely not doing cash. And a couple of buyers like Chris P and a couple other people just passed on it, wouldn't even give me a number. Like Chris P passed on it twice, I think once with Alistair and once with me. And I was like, well, what would be the number that would work for you? And he just was like, pass. What else you got? He wouldn't even answer me. So I think it's just way overpriced. It's an outdated house with a bunch of paneling, and kitchens and bathrooms need updating and all this stuff. And the seller thinks it's move-in ready, which it is if you want to live with paneling and outdated everything. It's livable, but it's not magazine quality 2025 HGTV vibe. Which other stuff? It's in Goldston, which but it's a large house. It's like a 3,000 square foot house at a 300K price point retail. ARV, and we've got it for 245, which is ridiculous because he told us it was move-in ready, and my lead manager went off of that and offered like a lipstick remodel type of price, but even that is still too high for what it needs. We're just overpriced on it. I mean, the wholesale price on that is like 150 to 160 based on what needs to be done. So I got on the phone with him yesterday and just apologize to him for having him wait for 3 weeks to get to where we are, but that there's no way we can do that price. And, and he kept trying to get me to give him the wholesale price. And I was like, you're not going to like it. You're not going to like it. And, finally I was like, it's going to be, like 150. And he was like, oh no, I couldn't do that. So I just left it with him that we'd do another round of outreach. We'll go on Investor Base and pull up all the landlords over there, because there are people who have bought on Investor Base who have paid 275 to 325 for rentals over there for that. So maybe somebody will do it, but I don't think so. I don't think somebody's going to pay, even if we took 15 on it and did it for 260. I still don't think anybody's going to do it as a rental.
Yeah.
But so that's my other challenge, deal challenge. And yeah, I think that's the week in business in general.
Nice.
Yeah, no contracts, one sold, one closed, and a bunch of leads.
Yeah, that's exciting about the Florida market. You got a great response rate already.
Yeah, it's really great to have that influx of leads, because the last couple of weeks have been slow. Even our SMS has been throttled back a little bit because we haven't even been skip tracing new lists. We've been recycling some lists because
Hmm.
just we had an 8-week drought. We didn't have cash flow, so
Yeah.
the leads had dropped off the last couple of weeks. But we sent out like 20 offers this week, I think. So yeah, still a decent amount of offers.
Yeah. Oh,
But I think that's it. We don't have anybody in the chat, so I think we might wrap this live up, right?
sounds good. Yeah.
Let's see here. So yeah, if you've been watching and listening, thanks for joining us. We always love having everybody's comments and questions. Oh, that's what we could do. We can jump on some comments before we wrap. Let's do that.
Yeah.
See if I can go to. Give me just a second to pull up the community tab here and see what we've got in the comments section over the last week or so. Okay, sorry for the delay here. Just scroll back to the date, the most recent. What did we last do? This is 8 days ago. How can I connect with you? What platform does he use to text? I think he means you, Jasper. Let me try and get to do you guys have any affiliate links for Motivate? So that's the last one we did last time. All right, so what platform does he use to text? And I think this was what we talked about SMS last time, and you did a longer section on it than I did. So Jasper used launch control. I use smarter contact. I guess we don't have to go deep into that, right? And then how can I connect with you? I think we have this at the end of our podcast, but Jasper, I mean, I post your link tree in every podcast we post. Is there anything else you want to share about how people can contact you?
Yeah, that's the best way. If you got my link tree, it's got everything on there. So it's got
Yeah.
links to my Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, everything. So
Yeah. So that'll just be in the description on our podcast here. It's at the bottom of every description. It's got Jasper's and my contact information.
yeah.
And then this is a longer thread. Thank you for this. I am young with very little money. This is in response to our last live where we talked about stuff. Young
Okay.
with very little money starting out. Just recently got introduced to buying on Zillow for affordable prices. I've been looking at some about an hour away between 1,000 and 8,000, but I get confused a bit on the numbers outside of what I would be paying on the retail price. I see some lots next to homes in good communities. This one, I don't know if we have an answer for this one. I believe will sell even if I hold it or can't build on it right away. How do you calculate the numbers if it's worth after you pay off the lot price? I guess it's just a comping question, right? It's just like you try and estimate what people are going to pay for it, and then you try and buy it from the seller or contract it with the seller at a price that allows you to make a profit. So you basically work backwards from what you think people will pay for it, and you can use Zillow or PropWire or other free sites to get an idea of what that will be, what that retail price will be. Redfin, Trulia, all those sites you can filter by land and see what's selling that's comparable. And then if you want to make 5,000 and something's going to sell for 20, then you want to get the seller under contract for a maximum of 15, right? So you can make 5.
Yeah.
Or better yet, 13 or 14, so that if you have to negotiate with a buyer, you have some room to work. Anything else on that, Jasper?
No, no, it's good advice. We did a comping episode a long time ago that
Yeah.
you sent to him, but my dad broke down exactly how he comps for land, and I did the same for houses. So I think that'd be valuable to watch for someone who's just starting out. And also, if you are daunted by learning how to comp, you can always just reach out to buyers in the area, and they'll just tell you point blank what they like to pay for lots in the area. So that could be a good way, especially when you're starting out. You want to get to know buyers anyway. So you could do it backwards where you reach out to buyers first, figure out what they want to pay for certain lots in certain zip codes or counties or areas, and then you can just get them under contract for less so you can make a profit.
Yeah. I mean, buyers are one of your best sources for price, and, real estate agents to some degree too will give you, especially on houses, a good real estate agent will know what houses are going to sell for in their market, but not
Yeah.
every real estate agent is, super knowledgeable. You have to find the ones who are doing a lot of volume or, actively working in a market. But yeah, I think that's all we have in the community for this past week. So thanks for reaching out and asking questions and interacting. We always appreciate that. And we're planning on going live every Sunday from 12 to 1. So if you want to join us and do some live discussion, we love that, to be able to interact and discuss these real estate topics in real time. So
Yeah.
just join us here Sundays from noon to 1. And anything else before we wrap, Jasper?
No, I don't think so. Thank you for everyone who watched the last one and left those comments. We appreciate it. And we'll see you next time if you guys want to tune in.